Now, I'm no fan of Piers Morgan, and as a whole, I just generally don't like the guy. However, when the pandemic hit, he was the only presenter on TV that was holding the government to account. Where everyone else seemed to be pandering to their nonsense and not wanting to upset them, he was the only one calling them out. Sometimes people were saying that he was too aggressive, but I don't agree. He was just trying to cut out all the waffle, something that Laura Kuenssberg didn't do earlier. These days, more people do try to hold the government to account, probably taking a leaf from his book. I mean, not Laura Kuenssberg, as I just mentioned. She's woefully inadequate, but I'll put that into a different video. But here on Her Politics Show, what he says is yet again absolutely spot on. He talks about how the people at the top of power are now raking in millions. I've not seen anybody else calling that out. And in my opinion, they should be in prison. Yet they get lucrative TV shows and thousands to write weekly columns in daily papers. It's rewards for killing people. And we've seen from just this week in the COVID inquiry that due to their incompetence, more people have lost their lives. He also goes on to say about the calibre of person that they need to be competent. The Green representative made a fair point that there wasn't enough diversity in the cabinet. But again, I had to agree with him. And what he said was not just a case of stick more women in there and it'll make things better. It's about the quality of person in that position. Take, for example, Theresa Coffey, who claims it's the wrong kind of rain, or you just need to eat more turnips when you can't buy fresh fruit. Or the health minister that said you don't have any money, then you need to get a better job, or just work more hours. But that's enough of me rambling on. Have a listen, tell me what you think. Is he right in what he says down in the comments?
Share some of your views later in the show. Let's get the views of my panel. Piers, what did you make of what Oliver Dowden had to say this morning?
I wasn't aware we had a Minister for Preparedness for the pandemic. I was hosting Good Morning Britain in that early period of the pandemic, and I remember challenging minister after minister pretty aggressively about the lack of preparedness and about what I felt was a chaotic, clueless, almost clownish way that they were going about handling that first phase of the pandemic. And it got to the stage where, you may remember, Boris Johnson ran into a fridge to avoid being interviewed by us, and then banned all his ministers from appearing on the programme for 8 months. They didn't want to be held accountable. And I was told, you should apologise for going too hard on these guys. Well, having seen what's already come out in this inquiry, I'd like to apologise for not going hard enough. It is quite clear that we were not only singularly ill-prepared, and we've had no preparation, but that everything we handled, from care homes to testing, to controlling the border, to PPE, you name it, we were not only not prepared, but the way we executed the attempt to try and combat the coronavirus pandemic was utterly clueless. Well, and I don't care, by the way, whether they're Labour or Tory or Green or Lib Dem or whoever was in charge. They were the government of this country in charge in a massive health crisis, and this government absolutely dropped the ball. A Prime Minister who wanted to write a book about Shakespeare, who wanted to work out his divorce, who was worried about curtains in Downing Street. What's quite clear from the evidence so far is Boris Johnson didn't care about this. And then Matt Hancock wanted to play God with people's lives. Boris thought it was just old people, and so on and so on. So what comes through is not only lack of preparedness and poor execution of anything we then tried to do, but actually just a callousness running through the top of government, a heartlessness, a lack of interest in the fact that thousands and thousands of people were dying every day. And it was a complete disgrace. And the idea that people like Boris Johnson and Matt Hancock are now off making millions of pounds off the back of this catastrophic failure of leadership in this crucial moment for the country, I find even more sickening.
James,
Boris is now making millions. Matt Hancock appearing on every TV show going.
James, what do you
How
say
they have
to that?
the gall to do that? I mean, it's shameful, isn't it?
Well, I agree with you that our response was slowed by the struggle we had to get Downing Street to focus on the pandemic. And I have spoken already, quite personally, about my frustrations. And that definitely slowed us down, for sure.
But is it fair to say that the politicians behaved badly?
I
The
think
politicians made mistakes, and then, Carl, I want to come to
I
you.
think that there was a lot of good intent, and a lot of politicians behaved extremely well. I think Boris, in particular, found it difficult to make tough decisions and to stick with decisions.
Who's the Prime Minister?
I know, and we had a leader who was not suited to that role.
And there were some women in that cabinet who actually were clueless too. I interviewed some of them. The care homes minister, for example, utterly clueless. So the idea that you just put a lot of women in there and it would have been different,
Well, I
it
don't
sounds
say
nice.
it's the only solution, but I think that it helps make better quality decisions.
I just think
but
that,
on the
honestly,
care
I'm
homes-
sorry, I just think that's such a trite thing to say. I don't think it's about the gender of the people there, it's about the calibre of the people there. It's not about whether should there be more women or more people to tick boxes. You know, like I say, I interviewed some female ministers and they were just as clueless as the men. This was a collective failing by the highest level of our government when we most needed them to be on their game.
Well, I think
I'm going to repeat this one more time, but the idea that the key architects of this failure are now out there making millions is a disgrace.
However, it might have not been all Johnson's fault, because according to Nadine Dorries, there's a secret smoking man that's pulling all the strings in government, and to find out what she's on about, you'll need to watch the video that's on screen now. Don't forget to hit that like button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.